This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Queenpin, bonus episode 4. When Regina and Angela get to their dressing rooms, they're excited to see the outfits that their husbands have selected. The women are thinking that their husbands have planned special evenings for them. But when they get to the estate, they're pleasantly surprised to see that it's a welcome home dinner instead. Waiting for them is the entire gang, plus Woody and the Queen Mother's best friend, Nadia Charles, her husband Anand, and her son Stanley. The guests have been enjoying hors d'oeuvres and cocktails while they awaited the arrival of Regina, Angela, and the Queen Mother. A few moments after they arrive, Donovan receives a text from Maribel. She has his phone number. She tells him that her and her father just pulled up outside, so he goes out to walk them in. Veronica notices his excitement as he goes outside, and then she sees how happy he looks when he walks back in with Maribel on his arm. As everyone walks into the banquet room, Rennie makes a beeline for Angela. And Donovan, whose job it is to eavesdrop on all conversations, overhears her ask Angela, "So what was Q doing? Dipping off and going to visit you wherever it was that you were hiding out?" Angela said, "No, why would he do that?" Rennie said, "Well, how else do you explain you being so far along?" Angela said, "Well, what do you mean?" Rennie said, "Well, clearly you didn't get pregnant when you got back here, so you had to have gotten pregnant while you were gone." Angela said, "No, I was pregnant before I left. I'm 21 weeks." Rennie said, "You don't look that far along for one baby, let alone two." "Well, I guess if that's the story you telling." Angela chuckled and said, "What are you talking about, Rennie?" As Donovan and Maribel made their way into the dining room, Veronica stopped him and said, "Can you go and check on the children and make sure that they're good? And I don't want Bella to get her dress dirty." Donovan said okay, and as he walked away, Veronica made a beeline to the table and held two chairs. She wanted to make sure that she secured a seat for Donovan next to her and not Maribel. When he returns, he's annoyed, but he doesn't say anything because he's on his job for the Queen Mother. When he sits down, Veronica reaches her hand over and places it on top of his. He snatches away and looks at her like she's stupid, and then he turns to look and see if Maribel saw that. But Maribel's not paying them any attention, or so it seems. Pops Andy stood up and thanked everyone for coming, made formal introductions around the table, explained how important the celebration was to his wife, blessed the meal, and released everyone to begin eating and conversation. As the soup and salad is served, various conversations broke out around the table. Donovan heard Miss Burney ask Stephanie how far along she was, and then he heard Stephanie say about 5 or 6 months. And then Corey correct her and say, "We're 22 weeks along." Donovan hears Rennie say to Angela, "So were you and the kids cramped up in a hotel like me, LJ, and Q were? Or were you in Moline with Veronica?" Angela said, "Neither." Rennie said, "Oh, let me guess. You were at one of your palatial estates being pampered while the rest of us were going through hell." Angela said, "No, I was doing what everyone else was doing. I was taking care of my children, praying for everyone, and hoping that my husband and your brother would solve the case sooner rather than later so that we could all come home and have this dinner." As the meal progressed, Donovan saw Ron trying to engage Anya in conversation via ASL, and she just kept ignoring him. He heard Regina asking LJ what the hell was wrong with Rennie. He saw Stephanie looking at Rennie suspiciously. He saw Manny observing the entire table the same way that he was. And intermittently, Veronica would try to engage him in conversation as well as flirt with him. She also made attempts to question Maribel across the table about who she was, why she was there, and how long she'd be in town. Donovan, trying his best to remain a silent observer, didn't interrupt Veronica when she tried to bait Maribel into discussion, and he ignored her attempts to engage with him. He was impressed by how well Maribel handled Veronica without being rude, short, or contentious. Unfortunately, Rennie made it a point to be contentious Throughout the entirety of the meal, she threw jab after jab at Angela. Both Q and LJ tried multiple times to get her to shut up. At one point, Stephanie said, "Rennie, what the hell is wrong with you?" And Mom Joyce asked, "Is there something you need to address, young lady?" And Regina told LJ, "You better get your damn sister before I go down there and whoop her." And Angela told all of them, "Let her be. She's fine." Donovan continued picking up bits and pieces of conversation all around the table, but what he noticed most was body language. Veronica was clearly plotting. Miss Burney was concerned. Q was nervous. Angela was relaxed and unbothered. Rennie was manic. Regina was ready to rumble. Mom Joyce was appalled. And Stephanie was irritated as hell. Corey, Nadia, and Anand were all concerned. Woody and Stanley were sufficiently entertained. Manny was on guard, and Maribel appeared perfectly comfortable and blissfully unaware. And the Queen Mother looked frustrated and ready to take her belt off and whoop several people's behinds. When the 5-course meal concluded, the Queen Mother stood up and excused everyone to the drawing room, asking that only the family remain. When Ron, LJ, Regina, and Mom Joyce stood up, she told them to have a seat. When Regina and Veronica and Miss Burney didn't, she asked them to excuse themselves. Veronica and Bernie got up without a problem, but Rennie wasn't going. She said, "I'm as much a part of this family as LJ and Regina are." The Queen Mother said, "We love you, dear, but no, you're not. Please, don't make me ask you twice." As Veronica walked out, she said, "Rennie, come on, let's just go." Rennie said, "Veronica, shut up. You just trying to get on Donovan's good side. If I tell him what I know, that'll go out the window." Donovan said, "Rennie, don't waste your breath. Veronica, if you're smart, you'll go ahead and spill Rennie's tea so she could stop threatening to spill yours." Rennie stormed out, and when LJ went to go behind her, Angela told him, "I got it." Angela rushed out behind Rennie and grabbed her by the arm, spun her around, and said, "What is your problem?" Rennie said, "I don't see why she invited us all here and then put us out so she can have a family discussion with y'all, and then only allow some of the family to participate." Angela said, "That's clearly not the issue. Your issue is with me. So tell me, what's the issue?" Rennie said, "The issue is that everybody's acting like the Queen of England came home. But I was kidnapped, and so was Regina." Angela said, "That's not the issue either. Let's cut to the chase. You want my husband. That's never going to happen. Now, it's one thing to have a little crush, but your behavior is a bridge too far." Rennie said, I don't know what you're talking." Angela said, "Are you prepared to find a new job and a new place to live? Because you're not going to play with me." Rennie said, "Angela, I think you've misunderstood." Angela said, "I haven't misunderstood a damn thing. Now, this is your only opportunity to get your mind together." Then she handed her Miranda's business card. She said, "You need to call her and get some help or get the hell out of my damn house." Then Angela turned around and walked back into the banquet room. When she was gone, Rennie ripped the card up into little pieces, dropped them on the floor, and stormed off to her apartment. Inside, she started trashing the place. She threw everything that wasn't tied down, stuff that belonged to her, and stuff that was there when she moved in. When the housekeeper came down the hallway and saw the papers on the floor, she went and got the broom and the dustpan, and Woody came out of the shadows. He told her, "Leave it there. Let that be her scarlet letter." Then he headed to Rennie's apartment. In the banquet room, Pops Andy, the Queen Mother, Emmanuel Lopez, and Anand Charles stand up in front of the group of family, and they weave a tale that's unbelievable. They admit to being members of 4 of the families that make up the 5 notorious families, infamous throughout the Caribbean for more than 100 years. Pops Andy acknowledges that his brother is now the head of the Baptiste family. The Queen Mother acknowledges that her brother Samuel is the head of the St. James family. And Emmanuel Lopez says that his mother was the head of the Lopez family. He does not name the current head. And then Anand Charles acknowledges that his brother is currently the head of the Charles family. And then the Queen Mother says The only family not represented there today is the Ramirez family. That's because the legacy of the five families ended when she eliminated the head of the Ramirez family when her children were small after she was kidnapped. It was the head of the Ramirez family who was responsible for the attack on her family in Trinidad. The Ramirez family never recovered. Then Pops Andy says, if there are any questions about our family history, individually or collectively, speak now. After about 45 minutes of pretty intense questions and pretty tough answers, the family leaves the room with all hearts and minds clear, except one. Pastor Corey is not too pleased with the types of questions that his wife asked and the way in which she responded to the answers. Angela was happy to finally put all of the pieces together and make sense of this whole jumble. Q, Donovan, and Anya's minds were blown. They knew that their parents' last names held weight, but they never really knew why. Q and Donovan remembered their mother being missing when they were small children, but they didn't have all of the details. And Anya was too young to know anything about it. She knew she had a twin brother and that he died in a car accident. She had no idea that he was shot and her mother was kidnapped. So the Queen Mother knew that follow-up conversations would need to be had with them, but there was no point in dragging everybody else in the room through the details. When everyone leaves the banquet room, Angela sees the card that she gave Rennie ripped up on the floor. She asks Q, LJ, and Regina to go with her back into the banquet room while everyone else goes in the drawing room. Angela says, I gave Rennie my cousin Miranda's card because she needs help. She wants Q and she thinks I'm in her way. LJ, she gotta go. Regina said, is that what all that mess was about over dinner? Q and LJ said in unison, yes. Then Angela says, and when exactly did you plan to tell me? Q said, I told you this morning that we would talk about it later, love. I haven't seen you all day. Angela said, I'm sure you knew before this morning, though. Q said, I didn't want you stressing over it. LJ had a talk with her. We were hoping that that worked, but clearly it didn't. LJ said, I'm going to go and find her right now, and I'm going to get her out of here. I told her that if she couldn't get it together, she had to go back to North Carolina, and I meant it. Angela said, and why didn't you tell me? Regina said, and why you ain't tell me? LJ said, neither one of you needed that kind of stress. Don't act like we was just keeping a secret from y'all just to be keeping a secret. Cut it out. Then LJ walked out the room. Regina said, I'm going to tell Stephanie. And she walked out too. When LJ gets to Rennie's room, she's gone. And so is Woody. He calls her phone and gets no answer. And when he calls Woody's, he gets no answer there either. But Woody sends him a text saying, I got her. I'll keep you posted. When Regina goes into the drawing room and pulls Stephanie to the side and tells her what's going on, Stephanie immediately goes outside to look for Rennie's car. When she sees that it's not there, she says, I know exactly where she went. Stephanie goes inside and tells Corey, I'll be back. Meanwhile, in the drawing room, everyone else is completely oblivious to what's going on. Donovan has sat down at the baby grand piano and started playing. Veronica is in shock. She had no clue that Donovan even played an instrument, let alone played it so well. Just as suddenly as he started playing the piano, he started singing. And Veronica was amazed at his singing voice. And then she realized that he wasn't just singing, he was singing to Maribel. When she looked over at Maribel, Maribel was absolutely captivated. When she listened to the words to the song, her heart was broken. Maribel and Donovan's eyes were locked like they were the only two people in the room. Veronica looked over at Miss Burney and said, I'm leaving. Are you going with me or are you going to find another ride home? Then she and Miss Burney walked out the room. Veronica even left the children. The two exited the house without even saying goodnight. In the corner, Manny watched as Donovan serenaded his daughter, and he could see that the two were clearly falling in love.